Morning, people came out to the Capitol Annex where the Senate Judiciary Committee heard Senate Bill 9. The bill would make hazing a felony in Kentucky. Senator Robert Mills spoke to the extent of SB 9. He says hazing in the first degree is a Class D felony, meaning he or she is guilty if they intentionally engage in an act of hazing that results in serious injury or death to a minor or student. The act would be referred to as Lofton's Law for Thomas Hazelwood, a UK student who passed away in 2021 from alcohol toxicity. This past October, Lofton's family testified about hazing prevention, saying the hazing process started for him as soon as he received his bid at the farmhouse fraternity. The bill will thoroughly and clearly define hazing. They say they want Kentucky to value student safety.
Hazing is a specific form of abuse that is not adequately covered in the state of Kentucky. Everything is left up to the universities. We've talked to people all over the country that have gone through the same things. There are only 13 states that actually have a law.
And Tracy Hazelwood says she wants this law to hold people accountable in Kentucky. And she says she never wants anybody else to go through what she had to. For now in Frankfort, Julia Sandor, WKYT.